Vision is our most important sense. 70% of our body's sense receptors are located in the eye. Visual stimuli enters through the cornea, which is the outer transparent dome-like structure that protects the iris, pupil, and anterior chamber of the eye, and it also bends light to provide focus. The iris is a ring of muscle tissue behind the cornea that forms the colored portion of the eye and adjusts light intake by controlling the size of the pupil. The pupil is the adjustable opening at the center of the iris that allows varying amounts of light to enter the eye. The transparent double convex structure behind the pupil is the lens, which changes shape to help focus light or images onto the retina. The fovea is the central focal point in the retina, where the eye's cones cluster. More specifically, it is the central part of the macula that provides the sharpest visual acuity. The retina is the light-sensitive inner surface of the eye in which the lens focuses light on. Furthermore, it is the structure that sends visual messages to the brain through the optic nerve. In addition, it contains receptor rods, cones, and neurons that begin the processing of visual information. Light enters the eye and triggers the rods and cones, which in turn activates the bipolar cells. Rods are retinal receptors that are responsible for the night vision and perception of brightness. Cones, on the other hand, are receptors that are responsible for daylight and color vision. Bipolar cells are the neurons that receive the stimulation of the rods and cones, which in turn relays it to the ganglion cells. The ganglion cells are neurons that transmit the visual stimulus from the bipolar cells to the brain. More specifically, the ganglion cells transfer the visual stimulus to the optic nerve, the bundle of over 1 million nerve fibers that carries visual messages from the retina to the brain via the thalamus. Depth perception is divided into two categories: monocular cues and binocular. Monocular cues consist of many factors, one of which is relative size. Relative size is where closer objects appear larger than further ones. Another monocular cue is texture gradient, which is where further objects appear much smoother and finer than closer objects. Motion parallax is the phenomenon where the further objects appear to move in the same direction as your direction, but closer objects appear to move in the opposite direction. Superposition is where closer objects appear to cover further ones. For example, the horses to the right are covering the horses to the left. Relative height is where further objects appear on a higher plane than closer ones. The house appears to be on a higher plane compared to the ducks. Relative clarity is where further objects seem less clear than closer ones. The distant mountains appear less clear than the closer valleys. In linear perspective, parallel lines converge in the distance. Binocular cues, in contrast to monocular cues, use both eyes. For instance, convergence is when the eyes track inward to view an object. Stereoscopic vision is when both eyes perceive slightly different images. The difference is called retinal disparity. The rotating snake illusion shows the rotation of snakes, even though the picture is not moving. This is an example of autokinetic illusion. Color constancy is where the colors A and B remain the same, even though they look slightly different under the light and shadow. The after-image effect can be seen by first staring at the dot in the center for a while, and later looking at a blank or white screen or paper. The opponent process theory of color explains this, which states, the colors comes in pairs, blue with yellow, red with green, and black with white. Size constancy is the idea that the size of an object in the distance will be consistent in size. For example, the distant mountain is still large, even though it looks not much bigger than the size of one's thumb. Shape constancy is where an object looks the same, even though it is seen differently. For instance, the door with an original shape of a rectangle is still that shape, though it looks like a trapezoid in the third picture. Figure ground is where the picture can be perceived in multiple ways. For instance, this image can be seen as either an image of a man running downstairs, or as arrows pointing in opposite directions. In the Poggendorf illusion, the rectangle obscures the lines. The eyes, in turn, view the lines as being straight, when in actuality it is not.